Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton.
I remembered this time.
Good job. Thank you for letting me introduce myself.
Yeah, exactly. And we're back in person, which is nice.
It is.
Yep. So we're recording a board game episode. So we've had a couple of fireside episodes recently, and we're hopping back into the board game episode. So tonight we are talking all about Scythe.
All about Scythe.
So Scythe by Stonemaier Games.
Mm-hmm. Who we've been talking about a lot recently.
Yeah.
With Red Rising and
I think I posted on Instagram or something because we played Red Rising, we played Wingspan, we played I think Red Rising again, and then now Scythe, and it's just a lot all together. Stonemaier Games is a fantastic company, so I'm not complaining by any means, but It's just kind of funny how it all kind of lined up.
Yeah.
I guess having them on a couple of episodes ago
kind of
kicked that off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm excited to dive into Scythe, which was one of my not like one of the first games that I played, but one of the first games that I played a lot of. That was
got really into the strategy of
into the strategy outside of Dominion or something like that, right?
Right. It was early on with Terraforming Mars for us and some of those other games. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm excited to talk about it, but before we do that, we are drinking. So Dalton, what's on my flight tonight?
Yeah, your flight tonight. This is exciting to get to go back to introducing drinks to each other. It's been a little while. So I had mentioned in Fireside episode a couple weeks ago that I wanted to share Whistle Pig Piggyback, their 6-year rye, and so that's what we're drinking tonight. Or you're drinking tonight. I'm drinking a beer, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the bigger brother of it, the Whistle Pig 10-year, was kind of their flagship, and it got a ton of hype when it started coming out. It was featured on Breaking Bad. And
really?
Yeah. There's a close-up. I don't remember the episode, but I just know that there is a close-up of of the Whistle Pig bottle. And it was backed by a big contestant on The Apprentice apparently, and so it just had all this publicity.
Yeah.
But it very much backed up its name, and so this one, the 6th year, came out semi recently.
It seems like it would
past
have come
couple
out
years.
4 years earlier.
Right. That's actually a good question. A good point. They are a company that is buying pre-made whiskeys and mixing them.
Oh, okay.
So they did not bottle their own thing for 10 years. It's really difficult to start a company that way, right?
That's interesting.
To propose income 10 years down the road is a really tough business case. So they're actually purchasing from MWP, which is a really big distiller in Indiana that basically doesn't bottle their own stuff. They exist to sell barrels to other people. And so they're buying specific barrels and mixing it to get the profile that they want. And so anyways, this 6-year one is made up of a couple of 6-year batches. It is a 100% rye whiskey. It's super dark, and so you can tell just looking at it that it has a really strong oak char barreling, in that it's picking up a lot of that kind of those dark charcoaly flavors. It has overall, I think, a pretty grainy taste throughout. Not in a bad way, but just you are picking, it's a 100% rye, and you taste it and you're like, I know. Correct. I can tell. It has some other subtler notes that I picked up on, but I'm curious to hear before we talk about that. I'm curious to hear what you are picking up and what your thoughts of it are.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's good. I did water it back just a little bit because you said it was about 100 proof, right? So it's about a 50% alcohol content.
Right, just a little shy of that, yeah.
Yep. So it's good. Yep. I am the sucker for rye, and so this is not one that is disappointing me whatsoever. I'm excited to try this, and then you did give me a bottle of the 10-year, which we will try at some point this weekend. Yeah. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I think this one compared to the 10-year, this one's going to be a little bit more maybe unfinished or unrefined,
a little bit more of a bite type?
Yeah, I think so. And just maybe you could describe it as youthful and bold or something, where it has it tastes good, but it can be maybe a little punchy, and I think the water might kind of help with that, which is why I'd suggested that you might try it with that. It has some vanilla and some things that'll in the body that are familiar and then are kind of yielding to some black pepper and some grainy spices. I did like the finish. It's not an overly long last. It lasts just long enough, it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yep. I definitely feel that, where it's I take a sip and it's right there. It's okay, cool. That was good. Yes. The burn doesn't linger or anything like that, which is nice.
Right. So if it's something that you're wanting to try in the 10 years, a little bit out of your price point, I think this is a nice step up. That's a nicer rye bottle that's not totally breaking the bank. So.
Yeah, it's definitely better than that Texas 100 or whatever whatever I bought that
the
one time.
Bardstown, I think, or something. yeah.
Oof. Woo!
Which is actually we joke about Bardstown a lot. They have a lot of other stuff, and it's actually a very good distillery. But just the one that we had, we did not enjoy.
Yeah.
But what about a Cheers rating? We haven't done a Cheers in a little
while. Okay. So this is going to be, for me, probably a 3 cheers.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that we could get to that 4 cheers category. Again, I'm still super new in my whiskey tasting career, but it's definitely something that I would always enjoy tasting.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if I always need a bottle at the house.
Right.
Type thing, but
you're willing to buy and try.
I'm willing definitely to buy and try.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend it. I would recommend this to anybody that wanted to go out and try it. So
awesome. Glad you like it. What about me? What am I drinking?
So you are drinking a Belgian style wheat ale tonight.
Mm-hmm.
This is called the Wit-Bellied Hedgehog, and I had to type this into my notes 4 different times because white-bellied hedgehog is a thing. And I just for whatever reason, when I was looking and I was typing it all up, I was it has to be white. And then I look back at the can. It's it's not. And I don't know. It was messing with me. But it's Wit-Bellied Hedgehog by Metazoa Brewing Company. And so the Belgian style wheat ale, you're gonna get a creamy type of mouth feel. Mm-hmm. And in this one specifically, there's they added an orange peel flavoring as well as some coriander to kind of give it a subtle contrast there.
That's okay. Coriander. I was I get the orange, and there was something I was having trouble describing, and coriander. Okay. I got it.
Well, yeah.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yep. Belgian style wheat ales are going to be kind of easy to drink, right? So it's going to be pretty smooth. It's not going to be super bitter. This one has a 18 IBU, so very low on the IBU. It's not an IPA type thing, even though it is an ale. This one is a mid-range alcohol content, 5.4%. So it is a pint. It's not. It's not some of those small can things. The SRM is about an 8. So you're gonna. It's a light. When you look at it, you're that is an ale. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's very much.
And specifically, it's that's a summer ale.
Yep. Absolutely. So that's the Wit-Bellied Hedgehog, which again I bought specifically off of the name.
Yeah. Had a picture of a cute hedgehog on the front.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's adorable. But so that is what you are drinking. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So first of all, I really like Belgians just in general. They're a great, for me, go-to, like you said, creamy, easy drinking. I love that this one already has an orange flavor forward, because even Blue Moon and some other ones, they'll show it with an orange, right? That's a common flavor for a Belgian.
With an orange peel. That's how you have to drink it. Yep.
Exactly. It has sort of a yeasty taste almost, sort of like bready, banana bready. Yep. Or it just kind of gives you some feelings of those kind of flavors.
Yeah, it's getting into kind of that. It's starting to feel more substantive than just a drink. You're starting to chew it.
Yeah, that's right? A good point. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So yeah, I'm very much enjoying this. Like I said, Belgians are right up my alley. I would drink this all day on a on a hot summer day.
Good luck.
So yeah, this is probably a 3 cheers for me. I'm really enjoying it.
Nice. Okay, cool. 2, 3 cheers. I'm liking it.
I know. Yeah, on our first time back in a couple of weeks. So
perfect.
A couple months even.
Yep. I saw that one. I like the name. I knew that you did like the Belgians, so I'm glad you're enjoying it.
You're looking out for me. I appreciate that.
I'll bring you an IPA at some point and just I'll just give you
It's okay that you're allowed to.
All right. So we have done a couple of Fireside episodes recently, and we do think that we have a lot to cover with the Scythe breakdown. So we're going to hop straight into the icebreaker answers from our previous Fireside episode that we posted on Instagram. Basically, the question is what board game mechanisms do you want to see utilized in different board games? Mm-hmm. And so we had some answers on our icebreaker on our Fireside episode last week. Mm-hmm. And so we posted that. So we're going to hop straight into that, and then we'll get into our Scythe breakdown.
Yeah.
And so we posted this on Instagram. We'll just kind of run through these. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on some of these.
Okay.
So Swoozle, He said he's going to cheat. He gave us 3. So we'll start off strong. Yep. The first one I 100% wholeheartedly agree. Do you have any guesses?
I do not off the bat.
Rondell.
Nice.
Yep. So he said he wants more rondels, which I can get behind that one.
Yep.
The next one he said was simultaneous action selection.
Okay.
Which I thought was interesting. I think of like Gloomhaven is the one that pops into my mind, right?
Okay.
Like everyone's choosing their actions for the round without, knowledge of other people's actions.
Yeah, Game of Thrones comes to mind for me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
I do love that mechanic.
Yes, it's interesting. It has both elements of strategic and tactical decisions, right?
Yeah.
And then the last one is action retrieval. So I'm thinking of Zolkin.
Okay.
Right? When you place a worker and then you have to wait for the workers to age, and you get a benefit when you pull them back. I may be incorrect on that. So so that's really the only one I could think about. Can you think of an action retrieval?
I guess like when I hear that phrase, what comes to mind is just like, I don't know, retrieving a card to your,
yeah, okay.
Like Spirit Island, like recovering cards and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what he meant.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'm not dying for games where I can pick my cards back up out of a discard pile, So that's why I think I'm not interpreting that correctly.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, Gloomhaven has that. I just want to pick up my hands and get all the get all the cards back.
Right.
Yep. So Gamecasters, they were the next one. They said they wanted more dynamic player boards. So things like Terra Mystica or Scythe, which we're talking about. Basically things where you can upgrade the actions on your boards or upgrade.
Oh, yeah.
Upgrade that. So Gaia Project or Maracaibo has that in it. And so I love this mechanism. I think it was kind of popularized by Hansa Teutonica, which we played one time.
Yeah, we did. One of our.
I think that was one of the first ones out there.
Okay.
And then probably Terra Mystica, and I know Scythe is heavily influenced by Terra Mystica.
Yeah.
But so that one's fun. Seventh Steven said he had 2. He said customizable boards. And so I tried to message him. I never got a response, but I'm thinking of 2 categories. So I'm thinking of like a Gaia project.
I'm loving this icebreaker, by the way, just that we have to interpret what people mean. It's half the fun.
Yep. So I'm thinking of like a Gaia project or something similar to like that, where the board is different. You can build out and the board changes based on the setup.
Yeah.
Or something like Taverns of Tiefenthal, which I think is probably what he's talking about, because like the modular boards are all over the place. And so if this is an underutilized mechanic, like Taverns of Tiefenthal, like you're upgrading your personal board, like you're flipping things over to get yourselves more actions to change your dice or something like that.
Right.
But I really like at least the mechanisms in Taverns.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I could see that utilized in more games.
For sure.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. The more I think about Taverns, the more I think it's just a really well-designed game.
Yeah.
It comes up a lot on, we've recommended it and everything, but it's solid. It's very sound mechanically.
Yeah. And then his other ones was more single-player versions of multiplayer games.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I'm taking this more as like there are single-player variants, but what I'm wondering is I can't think of a single player version, but I think of like Seven Wonders Duel as a 2-player version of Seven Wonders.
Gotcha.
And so I'm wondering if that's what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
Like taking a game and making it so you're not like, it's not a variant. You're not like compromising on some of the experience based, like boiling it down to 1 player, which not all games do that, but a lot of them do.
Yeah.
When you move to the solo experience, but maybe something like that. I thought that was a really interesting idea.
That is an interesting idea. I mean, you can think of the difference between Seven Wonders 2-player variant versus Seven Wonders Duel, right? There's an enormous difference in quality of your experience between
absolutely.
those 2 things.
Absolutely.
The 2-player variant is awful.
Played it once, never again.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, played it once, bot duel.
Yeah, bot duel. So, if that trend continued to 1-player variants versus 1-player like actual versions, that, it could make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. Next up, we have sheer boredom.
Yep.
So Mr. Roberto, he said dice spinning. And I think this is because the story that I posted it on had a video of a dice spinning.
Okay.
So I think that's where that's coming from. But I would
different than rolling.
Yes, but I would be all for a game that requires you to spin dice. I would I would be on that. So, so
if it falls, like rules about if it falls off, it basically becomes a dexterity game.
Oh,
right?
yes.
If it falls off the table, something bad happens. If yours spins the longest, something good happens. Like that.
I'm down for that.
In addition to what actually the roll value is.
Yes. Yes, please. More.
Oh, it could be like Beyblades, but with dice.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
A little arena, you whack into other dice.
That'd be awesome. Yes. Amram, he said the Abyss bidding river mechanics. Have you played Abyss?
I don't think I've played Abyss.
Okay, so Abyss is kind of like a.
I feel like I should have. I hear about it all the time.
Yeah,
I've
it's
just
a good
missed
game.
it.
Yeah, it's a good game. I don't know how to describe it. It's a filler. It's not a filler. It's kind of like a lightweight big game. I don't know.
Okay.
It's by Bruno Cathala, who did 5 Tribes. So that kind of realm of game.
Gotcha.
It's not like a heavy game. It's not a midweight Euro or anything like that. But the drafting mechanism is pretty cool. So you have this currency in the game, which are your pearls, and these can be used to do a variety of different things. But what you need to do in Abyss is on your turn, you're basically, it's kind of like a push your luck mechanism.
Okay.
And you're flipping up these followers to draft, and you use the followers to buy like council seats. I don't quite remember the theming, so sorry. But you're basically buying powerful cards that give you actions or special abilities or something with these cards that you're flipping up.
Okay.
And so you're flipping up this card. When you flip up the card, you have to offer it to the person on your left.
Okay.
And they have a chance to buy it first. If they say no, then it goes to the next person. They say they can choose to buy it or pass.
Okay.
And the cards are, it's a deck of 4 different suits, and it's numbered 1 through 4, I believe.
Okay.
So like a 4 is rare but very good.
Okay.
And then if you want it, you have the option to buy it for free. And then in your turn, if someone wants to buy it, they then have to pay you the pearls, which is the currency in the game. And so the first card bought in the round is 1, the second card is 2, then 3. So what you're doing is you're kind of pushing your luck. If you flip up a really good card, it may get bought up by someone, which is nice, but then they have a really good card that they got on your turn. But then depending on how many you flip up before you take, then they go into these piles, and people can then take piles. And so the more you flip up, the more appealing the selection is for the next player, because they can just take, hey, there are 6 reds in this pile, I'm just going to take it.
Yeah.
Type thing. So, but yeah, no, I really like that mechanism. I think that's a really good choice from Amram, because it's on your turn, you have last dibs. You don't have first dibs on the on the card. The person to your left does.
Yeah.
So,
and it sounds like that mechanic could be isolated out of the game and imposed on any game that either has like a river type system or any type of drafting type system. It's just a different way to do it.
Oh yeah.
That sounds probably less dependent on just luck of the draw than some of the like river and some of the drafting systems can be.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. I would like to see that
playing
one
like
more.
Terraforming Mars done that way or something.
Oh
like that,
yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
It would take forever.
It would take forever. But maybe like a you only have to get oxygen to X.
Right,
like
exactly.
3.
Yeah, like
You'll
3.
be fine.
Yeah.
Potts McGee. This is my favorite one on the list. He said anything and everything that Candyland does.
Nice.
So yes, I would love more flip and move games. Because that just speaks to my heart.
Games in quotation.
Yes. Dark Key 1 said Antiquity, which is a game on my shelf of shame that I have not played. But in Antiquity, you choose your own win condition.
Oh, okay.
And so, which is just really cool,
that
right?
Is, yeah.
And so, I would love to do that, and I would love to play that game someday.
Yeah.
And then finally, Mike, he said anything with a stock market. So 18 Chesapeake or anything like that.
Yeah. We gave Mike the bug.
Yes.
With the stock market games,
Yeah, absolutely. Economic games are amazing. And that's all I have to say about that. So those were the responses on the Instagram post. Thank you for all of those participating. Great answers.
For sure.
If we misinterpreted your mechanic, please let us know.
Yeah.
and we will issue a full apology.
Yes.
A video apology.
Wow. You're going to commit to that?
No. But,
we'll give you a
who's
shout
going to hold me accountable to that? So
we got some good ideas there for game night. Like this would be a good game night game.
Yes. Yeah.
Antiquity potentially could be a good game night game.
Yeah. Antiquity's been on my shelf for a long time.
Yeah.
I wanted to play it, and then like I don't know, things just got busy, and it just seems like such a big game. Like I think it was, I don't know if I ever said it on the podcast, but like I think in that box there's like 1,700 chits or something like that.
Oh, I do remember talking about this game.
It's like that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But love to play it sometime. So, so if you know how to play it and you want to teach me, please.
Yeah.
Alrighty, you want to dive in, talk about Scythe a little
Let's
bit?
talk about Scythe, yeah.
So a couple of Fireside episodes ago, we got an icebreaker submitted by Tucker, who gave us the icebreaker that was give me 5 games so that I can warm up to Food Chain Magnate, which is a really heavy economic game, and so 5 kind of stepping stones. And so we really enjoyed working through that. And so what we're going to do here to start out our Scythe discussion is to kind of maybe not 5, but like a couple of games that are going to kind of stepstone into Scythe to kind of give you a feel for some of the mechanics, maybe boiled down into a gateway game or something like that. Scythe is significantly less complex than a Food Chain Magnate.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm going to go ahead and do the first game.
Okay.
I'm going to choose Splendor. So Splendor is a great gateway game that teaches players resource management. So both in Scythe and Splendor, you're getting resources to grab powerful action. So in Splendor, you're getting these like mines or things that give you like ongoing effects, trying to get you nobles. And in Scythe, you know, I need to get 2 food to enlist my recruit. That gives me a bonus.
Yeah.
And so trying to understand and kind of look out and foresee what you're going to need to give you a benefit later down the road.
Yeah.
So
sounds good.
So that's kind of like my one of my picks, one of my stepping stones to get to Scythe. What's one of yours?
Okay, so for me next, let's see. I'm going to go with El Grande.
Okay.
Which is a very early, maybe the earliest area control game. I think that's what we said in the area control.
Maybe, yeah.
It at least feels that way. Yeah. And so calling on to that because there is a combat mechanic in Scythe, and El Grande doesn't have combat quite, but it has the feeling of like, okay, what territories am I strong in, and it gives you the ability to kind of move around the map a little bit. You don't have to be quite so like limited to where you are, like some area control games. And like some combat games. And so just kind of starting to teach in a basic way that feeling of like watching where other people are strong and where there's maybe a weakness to, you know, to kind of flow into.
Oh yeah, no, I like that. That's a good pick. So another one that I think would be good would be Wingspan, which is another Stonemaier game. So just basically we're just trying to get sponsored by Stonemaier at this point.
Apparently, yeah.
No. So Wingspan I think is a good one because it provides an action selection mechanism.
Yeah.
And it also kind of gives a feel of an upgraded action. So as you're choosing one of your 3 rows in Wingspans, you get to activate your birds in that row.
Yeah.
You only get to choose one of them, which is the exact same thing in Scythe. You choose one action, and then throughout the game in Scythe, you can upgrade your actions by literally the upgrade action. You can build buildings, which is going to give you a benefit, or if you've enlisted, it's going to give you a benefit when you when you perform the bottom row action. And so making those actions and when you can choose those, I think Wingspan is a good stepping stone into that a little bit more in-depth action selection that Scythe provides.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the main, like, kind of getting back to the icebreaker, that's one of the key unique mechanisms from Scythe that we really wanted to see other games start to kind of implement more of, right? And so it's impressive that you found a game to teach that, because that's what we said we wanted more of, because there aren't a lot that are doing that. So I think the only other thing that I could think of that I would maybe want to have covered is kind of the feeling of like the matrix scoring that Scythe accomplishes, right? So I mean, I can think of like very simple, like maybe even just King Domino, like some very similar,
King Domino's a good one,
like games that emulate that scoring style. Is there any others that you can think of? Maybe even one that's a higher complexity than King Domino? Because I think the real key here is balancing, you know, okay, where am I at on the y-axis so that I score so many points on the x-axis kind of thing.
Yeah, that popularity track in Scythe is critical.
It kills you. Yes, if you're not ready for it.
So I think King Domino is a really good option there, right? You need more crowns, and
Right.
Understanding the impact that adding one crown versus a double tile makes is huge.
Yeah.
Right. And just figuring out that cost benefit curve. I'm trying to think of a heavier game, which may not be a stepping stone, but I'm trying to think of a heavier game that implements something similar to that.
Yeah. What about like just Carcassonne? You know, I mean, I guess that has more of a point soup kind of thing going.
Yeah,
on,
I can see Carcassonne.
There's like a couple at least that are going to have a similar feel. Just it's going to be a bit of a stretch. Maybe.
Yeah, Carcassonne kind of has it especially with like the Inns and Cathedrals expansion.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Where like your roads get better if you put an inn on it, or like your cities get better if you add more crest to them, and so that kind of it makes a 2 city with 2 crest significantly more. I don't think that's a valid combination, but whatever. More valuable than a 3 city with no crest, right? So, so kind of understanding that math. Man, I'm struggling to think of something, which I think is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
So
maybe what that means is that the 3 that we kind of initially recommended, though, that would be kind of like the core path, and then if you were trying to introduce someone new, you might just have to think about some of these other like lower complexity games, like we're saying King Domino or Carcassonne or something like that, to try to introduce and understand how exactly the scoring mechanism is gonna play out in Scythe.
All right, I think those are great options to get you to Scythe.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know if we need to do kind of like a rules breakdown of Scythe, but
yeah, I think the episode, like other breakdown episodes, will kind of assume that you have a basic knowledge of the rules. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to, take an amateur or a novice player, maybe someone who has played a game or two, or maybe has just read the rules and watched a video and is looking to play their first game and be competitive in it.
Crush their friends into the dirt
type. Right. And take you into somebody who can play well and play competitively. But you're not going to be like competition ready. Like we're not competition, competitors in this specific board game. Yeah. So
I'm really excited to listen to this episode then.
Yeah,
because I am ready to become good.
Yeah. I guess maybe we should have like in the breakdown, like in the title, it should have like a little asterisk, and then it should list like, here's our actual win percentage for this game. It's not real high.
Yeah, I am a little disappointed. So we've played a lot more games than what I have tracked on my app, but I dropped my first 2-player game last night.
Oh wow!
Oh, I was so sad. Which, whatever. I'm not bitter. You're bitter. No, my wife played amazing.
You have definitely played a lot more Scythe than I have. For that reason, that you've you own it, and you've played through the Rise of Fenris campaign, and you've played just introduced this game to a lot of people. So I'd like to hear, I guess, your thoughts, just like starting out, like when we start to frame up this discussion of like how to be good at Scythe. What are some things that right off the bat kind of come to mind, just categories of things that we're going to have to talk through tonight?
So Scythe is really interesting because you get both a faction and a player board, and those are randomized at the start of the game, and those will heavily dictate your strategy. Right? So you're starting with your player board, which has a special ability, and then as you unlock mechs, you get more special abilities. And so one of the things that you're looking for, and what you need to do in order to be successful in Scythe, is to play into those strengths. And also, when you're looking at your player board, one of the things that changed the game for me is when you're looking at what 6 stars you're going to be placing throughout the game. I always shoot for 6 because that's what ends the game. I assume that. Yeah. I like to play the game like I'm assuming I'm ending the game. That does not always happen, but like that's how you should be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Most of the boards have a action that gives you 3 coins, which translates into 3 victory points. As a bottom row action. Each one of the 4
each
bottom
time you take the bottom row action.
Each time you take the bottom row action. I always will strive to get a star from that bottom row action.
The one that has the 3.
That has the 3 coins. So that is something that I kind of want to talk through, is just like the bottom row actions and how to pair those. But if you get a star from the 3 coin versus the star from the 0 coin, that is probably, unless it's upgrade, 12 more victory points.
Yeah.
If it's upgrade, then it's 16 more victory points than if you had gotten the 0-point star.
And do you have data on just feeling for what winning scores tend to be, like kind of just the ranges that they're in?
It's kind of varied. I think it's kind of varied, especially because there are strategies where you can rush the game, and rushing the game doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win the game. Like,
right.
I lost last night, and I placed 6 stars. My wife placed 3, and I lost. Right.
Yeah.
So that does not mean that you're going to win if you place all the stars. I typically think of a winning score as 60 to 100. But that is also very varied, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think if you score over 100, you probably will win that game.
Yeah.
Right. It's
yeah. You've done very well.
You've done very, very well.
Yeah. But it's helpful when you talk through, like, okay, I'm scoring 12 more victory points over the course of the game. Like, how much is that? And then you can hear, like, okay, if I'm shooting for, let's say, 80, just kind of the middle of that range that you talked about, that's like roughly 1/7 of your score. And there's not a ton of areas and ways to score victory points in this game.
Oh, I think there are only 5.
I think there are 5, one of which is barely a category at all if you talk about, like, the structures bonus or whatever. I think of mostly you're going to get points from stars. You're going to get points from the area you control, and those are going to be dictated by your popularity. And then you're going to have, like, some amount of just coins at the end of the game that you accumulated, right? Those are kind of the big 3 in my mind.
Yep. And then the last one that we haven't mentioned yet is just having extra resources on the board that you control. I don't try and score that.
Right.
Like, I see that if I score that, I was probably playing inefficiently.
Yeah. And there are times, like, towards the end of the game where, like, it's going to be your most efficient action to just produce and make some, like, it happens.
It happens, yep.
But typically you're not intentionally scoring lots of points from that.
Right. You asked me about the final score. I try and shoot for that. I think it's also pretty hard to try and calculate your final score at the end of the game, right? I hardly ever know what my score is going to be before I count it up when the game after the game is over. But one of the things that I look for is I expect the game to last about 18 to 25 rounds.
Okay.
So 18 is quick. There are a couple of banned factions that can do it in 12 or 14 rounds.
Yeah.
Or
banned faction player mat combinations.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
But I try and shoot. I'm like, I have 20 turns in this game. How can I get 6 stars in 20 turns? That's how I'm thinking about the game.
Yeah.
Definitely want to try and optimize and get the star from your 4 or 3 coin. I was saying 4 because my last one was on mech and I enlisted, so I was getting 4 coins for each mech. So I think my math that I said earlier was wrong. So I think that's something that I'm looking for, and I think, like, it's an obvious statement, but I think not the last thing that I wanted to talk about, but the last big thing that I look at when I'm sitting down at the table is mapping out where my 6 stars are going to come from.
Yeah.
And so you're dealt 2 objectives. Do you think that I'm going to, like, I look at my objectives and there are games where I'm like, I am not going to score one of these. It's not worth it for me to go out of my way to get this objective.
Yeah.
Right. I had an objective last time I played that was have 9 resources, 1 of each type on 1 tile. It's like, I lose the game if I go after that objective, right? Like, it's like I get a star, but it's like I can
paint a big old target for 1.
Yeah, I could 1. Yeah, exactly. And also 2, if I have 9 resources sitting around, that is waste, right?
Yeah, that's float.
Exactly. I have been raised in a lean manufacturing setting, and that is not good to carry that much inventory.
For sure.
You want your inventory turns to be low in both manufacturing and in Scythe.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think this is a really good place to start then. So let's say that I'm going to sit down at the game board. I'm looking at my faction player mat combination, and I'm trying to map out which 6 stars I'm going to get, right? I should probably assume that I'm going to get, let's talk about just real quick, reminder of the distribution of the stars. So there are 8 types of stars, right? The first 4 are just the 4 bottom actions, just completing the 4 bottom actions. And then you have putting all 8 workers on the board.
Yep.
You have completing an objective. You have 2 stars for winning combats, and then you have popularity and power.
Yep.
So there's 10. I think I said there was 8.
There's 9. There's 10 total. There's 10 total spots to play stars. There's 9 different actions or 9 different things that will place stars.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, I've already lied to you. But anyways, there's 10 possible stars.
Yes.
And you're looking to get 6 of them. We've already said you are likely shooting to pick up the one that has 3 coins. If you can't, or maybe you don't want to, you're probably shooting for the one that has 2.
Yep.
How many of the bottom row action stars do you usually account for?
I usually shoot for 3.
3 of the 4 then.
3 of the 4.
Okay.
And so if you can score an objective, that is very good. I do not necessarily go more than 2 turns out of my way to score an objective. If I can easily do it in my normal course of actions, I'll count that as 1 star.
Yeah.
I never score the popularity star.
Yeah.
18 popularity. There is no difference in that track once you've hit that third tier to raise yourself up to the 18 popularity.
Right. It's an additional like 5 or 6 popularity to get there.
Which is Dead Space.
It's Dead Space, and it's so hard to do.
It's so hard to do.
It's a really expensive star to like. Getting to the third tier popularity is awesome.
Yes.
Right. But getting the star is an enormous investment and usually not worth your resources and time.
Yep. So I think
that one's out.
Yeah. I've played a lot of Scythe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have seen the popularity star obtained once.
Okay.
And that was in my first game by me because I was like, that seems like a cool track to go up.
Yeah.
And I spent the entire game trying to do it.
Yeah.
I lost, but I did it. So kind of looking at it, I think the producing all of your farmers is a really easy star to get.
Uh-huh.
What you have to be careful with here is the production has some weird math because you produce one more worker for each worker you have on the worker space. That was probably a very incorrect sentence grammatically, but like, so I like to pair this with like trying to drop 4 workers in a turn, because if you can do that, then you're no longer paying popularity. You don't pay popularity or money to drop those. Yeah, so I'm trying to optimize that so that I'm not overpaying for production. I don't like to get this star until I think that I have enough resources to pay for my other bottom row actions for the rest of the game, or I can trade my way into those.
Okay.
So I like to have 3 workers on that, only paying the bolster, which is a minor cost. If you're paying popularity to produce, that is a steep cost. So I don't like to get more than 3 workers out there. And then once you put
for
that
a total of 5 workers.
For a total of 5 workers. And once you put that 4th worker out there, you have to pay a popularity every time you produce. And so I'm looking to try and drop 3 workers in that last production action to get that star.
Yeah, the other reason that works out pretty nicely is if you put a single worker on a village, the first time you produce it will produce 1 additional villager.
Right.
Now you'll have 2 there. You have a total of 3 workers, 2 of which are currently on the village. If you produce there 1 more time, they will draw off the other 2. So now you have produced 3.
Yep.
Total, and that's kind of that magic number of 5 that we're talking about. And so this is interesting because I think now you have 3 on the village. You could just go ahead and produce then and get all 8 deployed. And there are specifically like Rustviet wants to do that. They have some benefits to having all of their workers out, right? So for them, it actually can be a strategy to just dump all their workers at the start of the game. For you, what I'm hearing you say is you kind of prefer, if you feel like you're going to end up getting the worker star, you would prefer, instead of doing that and dumping them all at the beginning of the game, you would rather get the 5 out total, move them around, and then later come back and put 3 on a village and produce there to get the star at the very end of the game, basically.
Yes. I don't necessarily know if it's a bad strategy. I just personally hate overproduction.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I know, and I will do this when I'm playing the game. So if I'm looking at this and I've upgraded my food and it's only going to take me 2 food to produce or to enlist the rest of the game, and I have 2 enlists left, I hate producing 5 food.
Yeah.
Right? Because then I have a floating resource, which is just annoying.
Yeah.
And so I try and set up the board state and move my workers around, mainly utilizing mechs. I think that's the best way to move your workers around.
100%.
So that I am producing exactly how much oil, steel, wood, or food that I need to optimize my next couple stars. Mm-hmm. And then I will drop off, or I'll move a mech to a village, which will get at least 3 workers on that village. My next production action will give me that star, and then I have a mech to carry 5, right? I want to leave 1 there to claim that territory, but then that mech can carry 5 off into...
Yeah, at that point, you're probably in the late game, you're just trying to take territory.
Yes, yeah. Which is a nice way to set it up, because if you have a mech there, they can drop them off on the way, and I assume you have speed, right? So you'll be able to just kind of like run around the map and have fun.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's really important here to key in on is, okay, in my strategy, I'm going to plan out the start relatively early in the game. Am I going to have 5 workers out, or am I going to have all 8?
Yeah.
If you have 5, you're basically planning, I'm going to have 2 workers on one type of resource and 3 workers on the other. And the reason for that is so that when you produce, you are going to produce 2 resources of one type, 3 resources of another type. And those are the bottom actions that you need to be using those to pay for bottom actions, right? So you're going to target your upgrades to complement that, right? Because you're basically saying I'm going to have a 2 and a 3 coming out of my 5 workers, and that's going to help pay for bottom actions that I want to be taking. If I'm have 8 workers out, then probably 2, 3, 3 would be like the best way to go, right? So that I can produce once. I'm going to pay that expensive money and popularity, which I don't want to pay, but now I have 3 bottom actions in a row because I produced all 8 resources, right?
Yeah, I really struggle producing when you have all of your workers out because you're producing so much and you're spread so thin at that point. You have to have a lot of mechs to protect your workers, or else someone's going to come in and steal those resources that you just produced.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a big fan of capitalizing on the five workers and kind of rolling with that, and then dropping your 3 at the end if you can. It
does feel very natural. Like when you try it out the first time, you're like, okay, this feels like maybe the way that the game is maybe not intended or built to be played, but just kind of the way that the game comes together. And then I think there are strategies again that you can try with the 8 workers thing. Yeah. But give the 5 workers a try and just make sure and see if that's giving you kind of what you need. And I think for the most part, you'll find that it probably does.
Also, it just hurts so much to pay popularity to produce. Like at that point, I'd probably just rather trade. But
yeah, I think the key though is like if you are at that point where you have 8 workers out, you're hoping to only produce like 2, maybe 3 times over the rest of the game.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're paying. I think that can also be a good strategy if you do not plan to get the bottom action of the produce action, right? So whatever produce is paired with, if produce is paired with mech because you have like industrial or something as your player mat, you're like, I'm going to put all 4 mechs out. I'm going to be producing all the time. I don't need 8 workers.
Yeah.
Right? I can run with my 5 and that's good. If it's paired with like build or something and you're like, I don't really see myself building in this game, you might consider dumping all 8 so that you only have to take that action like twice over the course of the game, and it's going to give you, it's going to give you 2 oil, 3 steel, and 3 food, and you're like, I can do everything that I want to do for the rest of the game. I'm going to have trade in one of these actions, right? Because I know that it's not the produce action, so trade is going to be on one of these other 3 I'm trying to get, and I can supplement my income with whatever I need. And so just things to think about as you're kind of like setting yourself up at the start of the game. Yeah. We've digressed a little bit from stars, though. Let's get back to stars. Yeah. So where we left off, we were talking about popularity. We said not popularity.
Nope.
So what are some other stars that you target?
Most always target the 3-cost star. Don't target the popularity. If you can get an objective by your normal course of actions, including your other 5 stars, go for that objective. Don't go more than 2 turns out of your way to get that. Yeah. And I hate the resources. The resources objectives, I just don't like those. Yeah. Farmers are good. I think bolster is an interesting one, especially if you can like rush. If you're starting with like a 5, a bolster, so like maybe Crimea or I think Albion starts with like 4 or something like that. And you need to get to an 18, so that can get you up there. It kind of at this point you're kind of trying to optimize your board pairing with your faction.
Right.
One of the things that is going to heavily dictate what stars you're going to do is you're opening, I think we kind of call them peninsulas. So subtracting the expansion factions, each one of your starting 5 factions has a peninsula of 3 different resources. And usually that is a steel, not a farm,
village. Villages are very common.
Villages are very common, and then another resource. Yeah. And so you're probably going to get your mech star because steel is right there. Whatever that 3rd resource is on your peninsula, you'll probably grab that star just because it's easy to produce that in the early game.
Right.
And grab
it's a good
those.
thing to target. Yeah.
Yep.
So I really like the bolster star. And the reason that I like it, I think it does take a little bit of planning. I think you either need to be like upgrading your bolster action so that you are like getting 3 instead of 2, with a single action. And again, if that's paired on another star that you want to get, then that's a really good thing to just think about. Like, oh, maybe I want to upgrade that early and just kind of go for that star. Another one that can really be helpful is if you are enlisting into the upgrade. First of all, I guess if you're just planning on the enlist star anyway, which I think is a good thing to do, and we'll wrap back around to those bottom actions and which ones are good to target. But if you're doing that, and you're yourself and your opponents are going to pick up a handful of upgrades, like that's going to maybe get you something like 6 to 8 or even 9 of the 16 that you need, like roughly half of the ones that you need just for free, and you don't even have to do anything but enlist the one time, right? Plus the 2 bolster that you can get from just the enlistment bonus, right? So a lot of it can be picked up even without just taking a ton of actions. But the real reason that I like it is, unlike the popularity star that we talked about, where you spend a lot of time getting up to this high value, and then you get nothing out of it besides the star. Now that you have spent the early game building up your bolster, you can and getting the star. You can spend the late game winning combats and turning it into other stars. Right? Nobody wants to fight the guy who has 16.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like he's just going to dump 7 in this attack. Like I don't want to fight that.
Yep.
You know. It gives you a ton of like bully power, which again, territory is victory points in the game. It gives you combat stars that are very easy to win. It just kind of opens up these possibilities for you. On top of giving you the star, it gives you these opportunities into at least 2 other stars from just dumping 7 in 2 combats.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I find myself getting the bolster star more often than not, mainly because it just is a pretty easy star to get. I guess the last thing that I would want to say about stars is that I try and target my last star to be on my move action.
Okay. Yeah.
So if I have the opportunity to place a 6th star, I want that star to be the action that I do after I move, because then I am able to spread out, drop, and probably claim at that point 6 more territories would be the optimal move, and then drop a star ending the game. So yeah, that could be anywhere from 12, which if you're in the lower popularity and you gain 6 new territories that turn, that would be 12 points. Or if you're in the high popularity, up to 24 more points just in one turn, and then you end it before anyone can counteract and take that territory from you.
Right. Especially if you're picking up like a combat star as a part of that movement, right?
We won't go into it, but I think it was kind of funny. We did a thought experiment at one point, and I think it was Saxony can score the most stars. I think they can drop 5 stars in a turn or something like that. Yeah. Like two combats, 2 objectives, and it was hilarious. But But
and if they get an encounter that lets them deploy something that picks up a star, and
then their bottom row, so they could drop 6. They could drop 6. So hilarious. But I don't go out of my way to make that my 6th star. But if it works naturally, then I would like my 6th star to be the bottom row action to my move.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm hearing then like targeting 2 or 3 bottom row actions, targeting an objective if you can, targeting probably 1 or 2 combats. I think that's like a fair assumption. There's such easy, quick stars to pick up if you can.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think you would want to at least like plan for that, and then
especially if you have the bolster star. If you have the bolster star,
you need to be getting
go out.
Go all out, man. Bully people. And then the bolster star, we're calling it the power star, is like a maybe, is a can get. The worker star is a can get. There's going to be some that is like, okay, I need to plan for 2 or 3 bottom row actions. I need to plan for 1 or 2 combats. The other ones I'm picking up through a combination of workers, objectives, power, whatever kind of fits into the strategy for that setup.
And one of the things I like about Scythe is that it requires you to kind of think on your feet. There are a lot of tactical decisions throughout the game of Scythe, and I think a lot of that comes into, at some point you're probably going to want to make your way to the factory. So King of the Hill in the center of the board is the factory space, and if your character makes it there and ends their turn on the factory, then they get to choose from these special actions, which gives you a 5th action, which a lot of the times can get you coins, can get you popularity, or can do any of those 4 bottom row actions.
Yeah.
And depending on when you get there in the game, like for Rush Vet, I don't know if I'm saying that right. So, but for like the red faction.
Yeah, it's Rusviet. So I don't know if it's
so Rush Vet.
Rush Vet.
Yeah.
Or Rusviet or
Rushviet. For the red faction. Like they can get there in 3-4 turns, right?
Right.
Like if you're going to do that, then you're going to build your strategy around what factory card you pick up.
Yeah.
Because if you're able to pick up a factory card that is allowing you to build structures, then you don't have to worry about that entire building structures and paying wood. You can ignore wood for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the caveats that I would put into all of this math, is that depending on the factory cards that are in the game and what you get to pick, it may be worth to just ignore it and go for that.
Yeah, and I think this is a good place to go. Let's talk about factory actions for a second. I think in new player games, it feels like you have to get a factory action, and I would say that is not true. You don't have to get a factory action.
I don't think you do.
Yeah. It's just like when you're taught the game, you're like, oh, I got to go there. I got to find myself a factory action.
They're definitely fun.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. And they can be like guiding to a strategy, but you don't need them. The other thing that we haven't already mentioned that is an enormous benefit is just the access to a second move action.
Yes.
Is a huge benefit. And that benefit is really felt later in the game, right? So the text on the card is going to be most strongly felt in like the early to mid game. Just the fact that it is a second move, you will find yourself taking it just to take another move action in the mid to late game. And the actual like effect of the card is becoming less important, right?
The reason that the move is so important is that I find that the majority of my points in a game come from the number of territories I am on. Mm-hmm. So that is not the highest scoring tier. So you get one more point for each star that you have,
right?
But you're limited to 6,
right?
Whereas territories, you can have 15. That would be insane. I don't actually know. But like you can have more than 6 territories.
Right. But see, you have 8 workers, 4 mechs, and a dude. Oh, and 4 structures.
4 structures, and you can take the factory for +2.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can have a lot.
You can. Yeah, if nobody's stopping you, you can have a lot.
Yeah, and so that kind of ties it back into why I want to move, because the majority of your points are going to be coming from how many territories you own at the end of the game,
right?
Based on the popularity. So, like I was talking about the game that I played last. I had double the amount of stars, but I lost because I did not have enough territory.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it's not necessarily intuitive for a new player to spread out because it's not worth as much as stars.
Right.
So it's like you can win the game by not focusing on getting 6 stars but spreading out more, which is why having that factory action, which gives you a second move, is so valuable.
For sure. Okay, so I think that's a good time then to kind of take us into the actions now that we're already kind of talking about the factory actions, right? So do you want to talk about top actions or bottom actions first?
We've already been talking about some of the bottom actions, so let's do that, and then we'll move into the top actions.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so just looking at the bottom actions, all things are equal. Which ones would you prefer to target to get a star?
Mechs.
Yep.
Mechs and a list are my top 2.
Okay.
So mechs are just good because they unlock abilities. They're able to spread your workers, and then you can attack with them.
Yeah.
So they're
giving you access to additional stars outside of the...
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are mechs that are going to be better than others, right? So if you're going to play one of the core sets, speed is fantastic.
Yeah.
+1 move allows you to spread out because you can drop your workers along the way and just capture more territory. Enlist is really good, mainly early game. If Enlist is your last star, you're not benefiting from Enlist as much as you should.
Yeah.
Because Enlist allows you to get a special bonus based on other bottom row actions that you or your neighbors take.
Right.
And that's a huge part. So if you're upgrading, now every time you upgrade, you get to bolster, or anytime the person sitting to your right or to your left upgrades, you get to bolster as well. So that's just a really good, consistent bonus that you're able to get.
Yeah.
You also get like kind of 2 money, 2 hearts, or whatever whenever you enlist. I typically try and go enlist first if I have access to food on my peninsula.
Yeah.
Just because I want to try and optimize and get the enlist before any of my neighbors can take a bottom row action.
For sure. And I think you're specifically targeting the mech one because it is giving you 1 coin per mech. And so if you're assuming that, again, like we said, mech is a very strong bottom row action, a very strong star to get. Many players are going to max that out. So if you get that before yourself or any of your neighbors deploy, that's potentially up to 12 coins.
Which is over 10% of your score.
Yeah, over 10% of your score. Plus like the 2 coins from just the one-time bonus.
Yep.
I think the bolster one can be very strong, like we said earlier, to get you to the bolster star.
And I think it's really strong because there are 6 upgrades. Right,
yes.
there are 4 of all the other bottom row actions to get you a star.
Yeah,
upgrade takes you 6, and so just right there, that could be 18, which is the star.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly,
like that's pretty big.
Yeah, that can be a lot. The build one to get like a heart is kind of situational, right?
It's good, but I hardly find myself building.
Right. So if you notice that a neighbor is building and you can get 4 free popularity, 6 if you count the one-time bonus, like that's a great benefit. That's a tier by itself. I mean, that's huge. But if if nobody's going to do it, maybe it's the one that you do last or something like that. So Enlist of the 4 is my favorite. I feel like if you are getting the Enlist star early because you have access to early food and everything, I feel like it's playing the game on easy mode, to be honest. You're getting all these coins for free, you're getting this popularity for free, you're getting bolster or power for free. It's like everything's just coming to me. I just got to sit here and I get all of these things, all of these resources that I need. The popularity alone is enough to take me into the next tier. That's an enormous amount of victory points. The power plus the cards are going to bring me into the bolster star plus combat stars. Like I have access to a ton of extra stars. Plus, again, something like 10, 8 to 12 or, even 10 to 14 just free victory points.
Yep.
Like, I find that is incredibly action efficient for just 4 actions to get all of those things.
Yeah, I think that the enlist action is definitely top tier.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I think that it's the best if it's your first star, but as the game goes on, if you don't have the enlist star, then you're probably going to want to target mechs.
Yeah.
That probably it's a cross. There's a point in the game where it crosses, and you just have to read the board state and understand that.
Yeah. But like we said, I would definitely agree that both of those are a strong 2 stars to target, especially like early in your game, and depending on what your setup is, those are natural ones to pursue.
Yeah, the other thing that I would say about enlisting is if you are ever questioning which one you should go with, I look and see, because resources in Scythe are common knowledge. They're out on the board. So I look and see what my neighbors, what resources they have, and I will then
even what resources they're on, like where their workers are.
Yeah, where if I see that they're about to upgrade and I'm choosing between the upgrade or the build, I'll go ahead and take the upgrade, knowing that probably they're going to upgrade next turn.
Right.
So
yes.
that's just a tiebreaker in my opinion. If you can benefit from one extra one just by seeing what the board state is, go for that.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the next 2 stars then, upgrade and build. So I know that this is an area where you and I differ. I would prefer to get neither of these stars. I would prefer to get the other 2 and find 4 other stars in the other objectives and just get neither of these stars.
Yeah.
Which is not good, by the way. I'm not playing correctly. You shouldn't do that. It's just, this is my preference. I just don't like these stars.
Yeah. These are the 2 weaker stars.
Yeah.
I think build is weak because only 2 of the factions have build as part of their starting peninsula.
Yeah. And access is a big problem.
Access is a big problem. Build is supplemented by getting additional victory points based on where your structures are placed, which is something that's put out at the beginning of the game, but I never find that plays a huge role into my strategy.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like a big enough benefit. It'll get you like 6, maybe 9 if you did very well, but that's like you're going way out of your way to get just 9 victory points, and that
it's very hard.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It's very hard. So I do think that build is probably the weakest. However, some of the benefits that build give you are incredible. So if you can get the buildings out there.
Yeah. Specifically, I think the popularity one.
Yeah, the monument.
Yeah.
Where I think it's on your bolster action, you get a star. Or I'm sorry, not a star. A heart or popularity.
Yes, a popularity.
That's huge. Yeah. That's huge. If you can get that out, that's awesome.
It also does hold territory for you, so it can really help with like the spread. It's again kind of situational, and especially in really packed games, right? In very busy boards, it can.
Yep. So there's a little bit of a benefit there in 2-player. However, if there's a building out there, it doesn't drop my popularity any to go and take that. It's not a combat, so I don't have to worry about losing or giving up a star.
Right.
If I'm moving to that building if it's empty. Yeah. So it does hold the territory, which is nice, but the board in Scythe is pretty small.
Yeah.
And so if you're not there with maybe a worker or something, it's probably going to get taken or defended somehow.
Yeah. So do you drop them in your peninsula?
I don't build.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about this earlier. The 2 are Polania and Nordic have access to wood.
Yeah.
Which are like the blue and the white faction. Nordic, I don't enjoy playing Nordic. Polania, I enjoy playing them more. I think you like them a lot.
I like Polania a lot. They're the ones that give, when they do an encounter, they can take 2 of the
which is
benefits.
Just awesome.
Yeah, it's just really fun.
It's just fun. So I enjoy playing them. They're not my top tier faction to play. Yeah. And so typically the other 5 factions that I would like to play. Building is just not one of my top tier things to do. I always hate drawing the player mat that has, 3 coins on the build. I think you may have. Do you have that handy?
Yeah, if you want the actual name, it's engineering has one. The only like kind of nice thing about it is that it has like bolster on its build action, so you can like uncover the monument or whatever, and get like a handful of I guess you would, but even then you'd only get like the 3 popularity off of it. The other nice thing though is, again, build is the action that will give you popularity. So if you can enlist a single time to uncover your own build, you can start to get a bit of an engine of like just 2 popularity every time I do this action.
And maybe I just need to do it more.
Right. It's also one where you can start to consider like, okay, do I want to take this action after I have all 4 out? Right. Something we haven't talked about yet, but you can do that. You can, let's say I have all 4 structures built. I can still take that action, pay the wood just to get, like, pay the resources just to get the 3 coins and the popularity. And maybe that makes sense for me to do that once or twice. But
yeah.
But I agree with you that it is a tough one to build a strategy around. Building is.
Yep. And then I think we move into the most controversial of the bottom row actions, which is upgrade. I love upgrade. I think that upgrade is a beneficial and wonderful bottom row action to take. I think that everyone should take it.
I absolutely agree with you so far.
So the weakness
where we differ
where we differ is, do you go for the star with upgrade?
Right.
The problem with upgrade is that it takes 6 actions to get the upgrade star, where every other bottom row action only takes 4.
Yeah.
So that is an issue. It's 50% longer to get that star.
Yeah.
However, I do think that
in a 20 turn game, it's 10% of your turns.
Yes.
Are now attacks to get a star.
Yes. And so you have to look at it and kind of understand what top row action it's paired with.
Yep, that's true.
Upgrade is not the first star that I'm looking to get. I do think that you need to upgrade 3 to 4 times at least to make everything cheaper and to upgrade your top row actions. You need to get the 3rd move. Mm-hmm. You probably want to get that bolster, that 3rd bolster, to get you that star.
Right.
There are just some of those that you really need to upgrade, and then it's going to make things cheaper for you on the bottom side, on your bottom row actions.
Yeah. I think the caveat with so yes, it makes things cheaper on the bottom. I find that in Scythe, my actions are more limiting than my resources.
Okay, yeah.
And so I find that I would rather have, in other words, do I want to spend 2 turns to make a bottom row action cheaper by 1 resource each, right? Or would I rather just have those 2 actions back and produce once and get 5 extra resources that way?
Yeah.
And then just make the thing that I want to make and just pay more for it.
Yep.
For instance,
Yeah.
That's where you start to get, I think, diminishing returns as you on the make things cheaper part of upgrade, right? Where I'm starting to get diminishing returns and I'm starting to upgrade into things that it's like, okay, I'm first of all going to start upgrading into the star that I'm not going to get, right? The bottom row action that I'm not going to get a star for, because you're only going to get, like we said, normally 2 or 3. I think it's very difficult to have enough time to get 4 stars from your bottom row actions, and because it takes like 18 turns at a minimum. Just to take the number of actions to get all of them.
Right.
And so just making those cheaper in like the 5th and 6th that's an investment that maybe you don't necessarily need anymore. The other thing is, okay, I'm now making actions better that I may not actually be taking all that much, right? I'm making trade better, but do I really like plan to actually take the trade action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or do I plan to take it like frequently enough for that to matter? I may upgrade bolster, but do I need to upgrade the power on bolster and the cards on bolster? Do I need to upgrade both of those? Probably not.
Right.
Probably just one of them. Same with move, right? I always want to upgrade move, but do I really want to upgrade the coin on move, the gain?
Kind of a random sidebar. I have never taken the coin action. It is almost always better. I cannot. The only way that I can think that the coin would be better is if you have somehow run out of money and you need that to pay for a trade action.
Right, because you also don't have workers on the board.
And I think that you've already lost the game at that point. So always move.
Yeah, always move. So I think that points to, okay, there are at least 2 of the 6 that are just a straight tax, that are getting you no benefit whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. I can feel you on that. Mm-hmm. I think that math definitely does break down if you have the faction mat of industrial or innovative, where you get 3 coins for the upgrade action.
Right.
Because then, that's a lot of victory points right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 extra victory points if you take the 2 dead, quote unquote, dead actions,
right?
Which is probably going to be 5 to 10% of your score,
right? And then plus the star that you just
plus the star that you got. So that, and then I think it's engineering has a 2 coins on that. If it's a 0 coin, which there are a couple,
zeros and ones. I think there's maybe 1 0 and 2 1s or something like that.
Yeah, probably not worth it in that point. Definitely worth it to get the 4, but again, it's kind of all reading your player mat
for sure.
And all of these come with the little asterisk of you have to make sure that you're playing the right strategy for your player mat and faction for combination.
Sure. Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, I think we both strongly agree that you should plan to upgrade bare minimum of twice.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Probably you should shoot for 3. And you can usually justify a 4th. And that's coming from, again, on a, let's say I'm shooting for a production of 5. Let's get back to that conversation. So I have 5 workers out. I'm going to produce on 2 territories, right, and get a 2 and a 3. On most boards, that means that I need to have at least 2 upgrades so that I can upgrade something to cost 2 and something to cost 3. Right. There are boards where you only need to upgrade once to make that happen or something like that. But on most boards, I'm probably going to plan to upgrade twice just to get my bottom row actions to the spot where they're going to pair well with my 2-3 combo that I have going on. Additionally, I think, like you said, move is almost a must. Like, it is an excellent upgrade to take. Bolster can help you get the star. That can make a lot of sense. The popularity in certain ones can get you a trade action back, where trade gets really useless in the later game.
Yep.
And so if you find your trade paired with something on the bottom row action that you really want to take, that can be a really great upgrade, because now you can take 2 popularity, and that's a great thing to do.
Yes.
Production can make sense in a lot of situations. You often, if you know you're going to pick a bottom row action, you might just be saying, I just want to upgrade the top row action of whatever's on that, right? Because I know I'm going to be taking it all the time. So point being, 2 to 3 times, even 4, upgrading is very, very justified. Getting to that star is something you're going to have to think about.
I agree with that. I am just more apt to go out of my way to get that star
than I am.
than Dalton is. So.
But I think you also win more games than me. So maybe you need to take Nelson's advice over mine.
I win more games, but I don't know if my win percentage is better. So let's talk about the popularity track real quick.
Okay.
So the popularity track is kind of this matrix that we were talking about earlier, where there's 3 tiers, and basically the higher you are on the popularity track, the more each one of your scoring avenues is worth. Mm-hmm. So your stars can be worth 3, 4, or 5 points. Territories can be worth 2, 3, or 4. Resources 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
Popularity is critical in this game.
Yeah.
It is so hard, if not close to impossible, to win the game if you are at a lower popularity than one of your opponents.
Yeah.
Just because it's so cumulative, especially with the area. So if you're controlling about the same amount of area as one of your opponents, and they're in a tier higher, or God forbid 2 tiers higher, you're losing that game. But like, if they're in a tier higher, you're probably going to lose the game.
Yeah.
And that was my
It's at least a significant disadvantage.
Yes.
Like, it's a significant thing to try and overcome.
Yes. And so that, like, we were talking about the game that I played yesterday, where I had double the amount of stars. I ended the game. I had, I think, more territory. Mm-hmm. I owned the factory, and I lost because I was a tier down in popularity.
Yeah.
So I should have drugged the game out one more turn, bumped myself up into that into that next popularity.
Right. Especially because you were controlling the end of the game in that specific situation.
Yes. I just want to caution you that if you're looking at ending the game and you're not in the same, it doesn't matter if it's the first, second, or third tier. If you're not in the same tier as your opponent, you will have a hard time winning that game.
Yeah, you better be certain on your math.
Yep. And I was not. So,
the other thing they can sneak up on you there is like money in the bank, right?
Yes.
Just how much money people have pocketed can be. It's public knowledge, but it can be sneaky in how it's piled up in people's play areas. You know?
You're so focused on your player board and the board. There's just a lot, and then you like look over and you're like, oh shoot, like she has 30 coins, right? Like so you're overcoming a barrier of your delta in coins already there.
For sure.
So the popularity track is just something that as I play more and more, you just cannot ignore. You have to do that, which I think kind of ties into the encounter cards, which is another thing that I wanted to talk to, which are all of these little tokens that you're going to get, and you're presented with 3 options. Usually one of them is going to get you 2 of something in a popularity, and one of them is going to have you lose popularity.
Right.
You better need whatever it is giving you on that encounter card to lose that popularity.
Yeah. I think the easy mistake to make there is, oh, this is giving me oil and I don't have access to oil, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. But if you're not planning to get the star of the thing that it's giving you resources for, right, that can be, you just have to be really careful about that decision. If you're going for that star anyway, then okay, now it's saving me some produce actions, right? It's saving me the workers that are there. I can either start to spread them out or move them to a different resource. Like, it opens up some doors for you that can be worth it. I would think especially like Polania, if you're offered steel, that's a really natural, like, yes, I want to put my mechs on the board, but I don't have steel in my starting peninsula. That can be a really natural one to accept. But you can back yourself into a corner real easy if you lose too much popularity, which is easy to do again with Polania because you can take 2 of the benefits on the encounter card.
Yeah. I always kind of think about it in the terms of trade. So like, I don't have access to oil, but you always have access to oil because you always have access to the trade action.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, okay, I can get 4 oil for 1 popularity. I'm making up things right now, right? I don't know if this is 1. It's like, okay, is that 1 popularity worth 2 coins? Probably not. So
again, it's the actions. The actions are really helpful.
It is the actions, which is really helpful. But you're getting the 4 oil, or you can trade and also have access to the bottom row action of whatever your trade action is on. And so losing popularity is very difficult. And also on the flip side, the whole gain 2 money, 1 popularity is not flashy, but it works. It's like the Honda, right? Like, it's going to run forever.
Yeah.
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
It's not exciting, but
it works.
It works. If it can get you into the next tier, and also just like 2 money, 1 popularity is a solid deal just for moving on to a new space.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think you will do what I have done many times. You will accept the pay 1 popularity thing, or bypass the like gain 2 money 1 popularity thing. And then find yourself at the end of the game at the edge of being able to step into the next tier, right? 1 popularity down from being in the next tier, and think back to that action and realize you made the wrong choice.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so just kind of like my favorite question of any of these episodes, I guess. What is your favorite faction to play?
Yeah.
Let's stick with base game.
Yeah, base game, Crimea.
Yeah,
absolutely. Crimea yellow is, in my mind, the most fun. They're the most flexible. Their big thing is that they can use combat cards for resources, right? So that opens up all of these efficient engine building turns, right? Where they can start to just accelerate their bottom row actions faster than other people. They also start with my favorite combination of resources in their peninsula, in that they have steel for deploying, they have food for recruiting, and then they have a village. And like I said, those, I would prefer to play a game where the 2 bottom row action stars are those 2.
Yes.
So I would it's like, oh, that's what Crimea is built to do.
Yep. Yeah, Crimea is really good. It offers that flexibility, which I know you love.
Yeah.
That's
they also have the fun, like, stealing cards from people.
Yeah,
thing.
which is just annoying. It's just horrible. Yeah. And then they have the mech that will allow you to move to any empty player base.
Yeah, that one's kind of funky.
So you can just spread so quickly. I think Crimea is probably the strongest out of all 7 of the factions.
You think so?
Yeah. For experienced players, I think Rush Vet is probably the best if it's your first game. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy Crimea. My other favorite is going to be Saxony. Okay. So the Black faction. I don't think that they're great, but I just really like their mobility, and I really like the strategy that of just like carrying a mech with a bunch of workers. I don't think it's a good strategy, but it's hilarious.
Right.
And just like hopping around on the mines, and like, you cannot attack me because you're going to drop 6 in popularity, but I can attack you, and it's going to be hilarious because you're going to be on a mine if I attack you, and then I get bonuses for that. So I also just really like their mechs. I think they're they're pretty cool mechs. So.
Yeah.
And Crimea has the worst mechs. So the tractors.
Visually.
Yeah,
the
the
tractors.
tractors.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, very true. I also, like I said, I really like Polania. We've talked about them a lot tonight. They have to kind of overcome some different challenges than the other people with like not starting with steel. So they either have to trade for it or they have to get an encounter and, try and get steel or get a mech off of it. So they have to think outside the box a little bit. And then they're also they're doing this like lake teleporting thing, right? That they have.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, that they have going on, and then of course they're chasing down encounters, which other people are like, oh, those are nice to pick up. But it's no, this is my strategy. I'm gonna go pick these up.
I get a lot from this.
I get a lot from it. So it just feels like they play a slightly different game and face different challenges than other factions, which is fun for me to play through.
Yeah. All right, so that's kind of the base game of Scythe.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about a couple of the expansions real quick. We're not going to dive into the analysis, but just kind of to give you an idea of what they are. So you got Invaders from Afar, which is obviously a planned expansion for Scythe because it adds 2 new factions which were printed on the original board.
Yeah.
So you knew that they were coming, but it adds Albion and Totogawa as factions, which are really interesting. I would never give them to a new player. They're pretty complex in the sense of you play a different game when you play those. Then you move into the Wind Gambit, which I think is very fun and excellent to buy if you want to look at awesome minis. So they add these airships which modify and they have different rules for each game. They're interesting if you've played a lot of Scythe.
Yeah.
I've still played a lot of Scythe, and usually it's about a 50-50 if I include them. They're mediocre at best.
Yeah.
The best thing about the Wind Gambit is it has 8 different game modes where you can play where the games are different. So maybe it's the game lasts X amount of rounds no matter what.
Okay.
Or the one that we played last night is that if you place your 6th star, if you win, the game's over. If you lose, everyone else gets one more turn with you going last. And so it just kind of modifies the game a little bit. It modifies that strategy because vanilla Scythe can get pretty programmatic after a significant amount of plays. And then the last one, which I think is the strongest expansion, is the Rise of Fenris, which adds a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And so you play through 6 different scenarios where you are upgrading your faction as you're going along, buying new kind of special actions that you can do throughout the campaign, and how you do in one affects the next. And so I highly recommend Rise of Fenris. I think that
I've really enjoyed Fenris.
Yeah. It's a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those where you get to open boxes too as you're going through. So it's kind of got that feel where you get something new. Mm-hmm. But Rise of Fenris is a lot of fun. I would not start with Rise of Fenris. I would play a couple of games of vanilla Scythe before you go into that. But if you like the campaign, if you're playing Scythe a lot, if you think that you can play 6 more games of Scythe, which doesn't sound like a lot, but then you look at it and it's
it's 10 to 12 hours.
10 to 12 hours. And then also a lot of people, when they're playing a lot of games, it's 10 games of one game is a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in a year, right? So you're looking at it is a commitment, but it's definitely worth the payoff.
Yeah. And I would agree that you probably want to pick it up if you're planning to tackle Fenris. I think you want to pick it up while you are starting to get excited about Scythe.
Yeah.
So after your 3rd game of Scythe, that's a good time to pick it up. I think we had kind of picked it up and started playing it after our, I don't know, maybe 8th or 10th game of Scythe. And that was maybe a little bit late. It's sort of it was losing its shine, the game was, by the end of the campaign. It was well, I feel like I want to finish it out, because we started this. And it felt sort of like Pandemic Legacy in that way, right? Where it's okay, this is kind of a lot of Pandemic by the end of it. But if you're just starting to get into it and getting excited about it and starting to enjoy breaking down the strategy, I think Fenris is a really great thing to play through. It also adds some things that can be implemented on vanilla Scythe, just outside of the campaign, to add a little bit of variety, which is nice.
Yep, absolutely, and we will not tell you what those are.
Yeah,
because I don't want to ruin them for you.
Yeah,
because they were fun to open. So.
For sure. I mentioned that because I want you to know that it's not just a campaign that's totally separate from the original board game.
Yeah, and I do like the way that they set it up, where if you want to, you can go play scenario 4 without playing scenario 1, 2, or 3. It's kind of like Tuscany, which is from Stonemaier again, where like it was designed to kind of play as a pseudo campaign where you would add and kind of expand your vineyard and add more things to do, but you can add in all the modular sets at any time. So it's basically adding in 6 new modular sets as well.
Very cool.
But yeah, so that was our breakdown of Scythe. We really enjoy this game. I think that it's a great game for 2-player. We can knock out a game in under an hour now, which is nice because it feels like such a big game. It feels kind of epic. It feels like you're doing a lot. Yeah. And so I think Scythe is a great kind of midweight game that anybody can enjoy. You know, more experienced gamers that are kind of getting into the hobby. I think because of the way that it's set up with the thematics and the mechanics, anyone can enjoy it. So I highly recommend Scythe. Hope that you win your next game. Let us know if you don't. Let us know if you upgraded all the way and got your 6-star, and that'll settle a debate here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
let us know if you got the 18 popularity star and won.
Yes, please.
We want to know.
Yeah, I absolutely want to know. I want to talk to you. We'll have you on.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for listening. If you had any comments or questions about the episode, reach out to us. We have a Discord, so you can find that it's a link in our show notes. Our show notes will be in our description as well, which is going to outline kind of all of what we've been talking about in a more concise manner that you can read
concise,
in like a
organized.
Organized blog
easy to
post.
reference. Yeah.
And so join our Discord or read the show notes, comment on the show notes, and then we also have an Instagram that we post a lot of pictures to. You're gonna see some Scythe pictures because I've been playing some Scythe. So yeah, we love talking with you all, and this has been a lot of fun. We've been talking about doing this Scythe episode since probably we started the podcast over a year ago. So I'm glad we finally got to do it. Yep.
For sure.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.